Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. I'm your host, Martino Puccio. Back with me this time is Matt Santangelo. Obviously, a lot has happened. Unfortunately, we were not able to do a preview for Napoli Milan, but we are now here to review that match and then look ahead to Udinese and just everything else involving Milan, including the next three matches of the Champions League. So, yeah, Matt, how are you before we get started here with everything?
Not too bad. Obviously, we're going to dive into this match and
Yes.
what's happening, and you'll see my full feelings and thoughts there. But personal life, we're doing good.
Yeah. Again, if you have not followed us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts already, be sure to do so at that Milan podcast. Obviously, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like, comment, everything that you have seen from Milan over the past few matches, specifically PSG, Napoli, even back to Juve if you want to as well, even though we discussed that. Yeah. So let's just get into it. So Milan draw against Napoli 2-2. Positives to take away. A lot more negatives, especially after the first half. The second that the second half started, we started to see a lot more issues regarding what Milan have been going through the past few weeks, whether it's defensive issues, injury issues, substitution issues. There's a lot of moving parts within this that was just really kind of frustrating and interesting to take away from. So we'll talk about the first half performance first, right? Electric, perfect. Everything that you would have, not perfect, but everything that you would have wanted for Milan to come out with after the past two performances against Juventus and obviously PSG, Milan did that. Going up 2-0 against Napoli in their place, Politano missed an easy chance at the start of it as well. So a little caveat with that, it's not like Napoli was not creating anything. They had their chances too. But as far as Milan go, there should have been about 4 goals by halftime. Tijani Reinders missed a sitter himself, but Pulisic was fantastic. He gets subbed at the half because of a supposed injury. He's doing some training today with the squad, so there's a possibility he makes it back this weekend. Whips in the cross to Giroud. Giroud showing up. Milan basically dominating at the Diego Maradona Stadium like they have been in recent years. And everything fell apart within the first 15 minutes or so of the second half. Pulisic comes off injured, as we mentioned. And then Kalulu also came off injured as well, which was just catastrophic because Chiera could not make this one due to muscle fatigue. And then on top of it, Chao was suspended because of his red card. So we're sitting there with Tomori and a player who has not played in Europe yet since leaving Argentina, and Pellegrino. Then he fractures his foot. And then Kalulu is possibly facing surgery that could see him out up to 4 months. And Milan are essentially looking at 3 center backs. I immediately said Simic has to be called up from the Primavera. It looks like he's going to be training with the first team. We saw a little bit of him in the preseason. Milan escape with a 2-2 draw. And very similar, and I tweeted this out, to what it was like against Dortmund, where prior to the match, you said to yourself, Milan go away with some key players missing, and they pick up a draw. But then you see the match unfold, and you're like, this is not good enough. There should have been 3 points taken here. So what was your overall takeaway from that first half, and then basically the result and everything that transpired after that first half?
They did a lot of the hard work. The first half was, at least it started, okay. It wasn't spectacular. Napoli had moments where they looked like the Spalletti type Napoli of last year, moving the ball very quickly. Now they were without Victor Osimhen, so they didn't have that star player, which was key. We knew that coming into the match. That wasn't a surprise in the build up to this. But then Milan grew into the match in the first half, and look, they got 2 goals from Olivier Giroud, who was in a goal-scoring drought. 1 assist from Pulisic, swinging in on the left foot. Great cross in. I think Mehmet should have done a lot better. He had like flappy hands on that one. I think he should have kept that out.
Shaky this year.
Nevertheless, good cross, good finish. And then Milan get another one. Davide Calabria swings in. It was kind of like that Scudetto winning season where it was just like swing balls into Giroud, and Giroud was just getting on the end of every single one. And you're thinking 2-0 away to Napoli, and you're thinking, wow, this is the response we needed. 2-0, yes, injuries. Even Pellegrino came in the first half, and his first touch was very shaky. He tried to push the ball out, and it got taken away, and they didn't make anything of it. But then he sort of settled in a little bit. Tale of 2 halves, this one, though. Second half, the first goal was really directly impacted by him and his failure to clear the ball. or control the ball. I mean, he tried to like head it out and
Yeah,
it
it was just a
and
really weird and shaky spot
really,
for him to
really
be in.
weird, shaky spot for him. And again, like I'm not saying my expectations of him
Yeah,
were like up here, but it's not like there was anything you were asking like okay, we need this player to be world class. Like I think you just needed him to do the simple things, like clear lines, position yourself somewhat. But again, easier said than done. I know it's a difficult environment, difficult
yeah,
opponent. You knew they were going to press him and make press that issue and try to force him into errors. And sure enough, he committed a couple. And then he gets injured. But I think overall, look, between the injuries, between, letting the game fall apart in the second half, which 2-0 is a dangerous scoreline. I know 2-0, I talked on spaces with a lot of people, and everyone kind of had
yeah,
the mutual feeling of 2-0 is dangerous. This game is far from over because you get one quick, which is what they did. Now things completely shift in their favor.
yep.
And sure enough, Raspadori gets the free kick. Some people said
Incredible
that
goal.
Magnon could have done better. Nevertheless, it was a very sloppy second half for Milan. To your point, I think it's pretty fair about the first half playing out a certain way and the expectations being, hey, a draw would be fine. But when you're up 2-0 away to a team like Napoli, and
Missed
then
chances
you
after
get a
missed
draw, and they
chances.
really could have lost that game. Cavada had a chance at the end, and Magnon saved it. But
Yep.
that could have been a defeat. And you're thinking, 2-0 up and you lose 3-2 in a match like this, and you have all the injuries. They're
Yeah.
lucky to get out of there with the 1 point
Draw.
now, looking back.
Mhm.
But it's really not a good spot for Milan. I mean, it's beyond some of the injuries they've had. A lot of the results haven't been convincing. They've gotten wins, and people will say, well, they were top of the table going into the international break. That's all
Yeah.
fine and well. But eventually things are going to kick in. The injuries are going to play their part. The maybe spotty performances are going to play their part. And now Milan are going to be on the other opposite side of that,
Yeah.
where you're not getting the favorable result. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. Now, the schedule coming up, and if we're just moving a little bit ahead, is a little bit easier aside from the Champions League games. But with the injuries we have and the thinness we have in defense,
Yeah.
like we're another issue or a red card from like in certain departments from really being behind the 8 ball and making this really difficult for us heading into the last month and a half of the year. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Pellegrino out. It's a shame to see Kalulu come back and then get injured, and he's probably out for 4 months.
I mean, his season's toast for the most part. I mean, even if you do come back 4 months time, if it's an opinion for surgery, there's no
March.
definitive answer. But that even then, it'd be 4 months if he does have to get surgery. So that's an issue. And obviously with Pellegrino, then like I said, I am very frustrated that I was so dead on about what I was worried about this coming season. And it sees us in the exact position where I thought we would be, and that's third place right now. And this is stacking up injuries. There's a common denominator over the past few seasons. And I see a lot of stupid Inter fans just basically opening their mouths about stuff saying that Milan were purchasing injury-prone players. When was Sportiello hurt like this? When was Kalulu hurt like this? When were all these players that are now said Pellegrino himself, the guy fractures his foot almost immediately. We're seeing muscular injuries on a consistent basis. And it was prior to last year. It was prior to that. It was prior to the Scudetto winning year where Milan were going through this injury crisis. And people want to sit there and say it was just because they recruited players from past summer that are injury prone. That's just BS. It's just not even true. The guy, Pulisic, has been playing nonstop. He's the only guy playing. And then RLC, yeah, he misses a couple of matches for that. But Tijani Reinders, no injuries whatsoever. Pellegrino, same thing. Kalulu, when was Kalulu hurt all the time? He wasn't. Now all of a sudden this year, he can't stay on the pitch, getting muscular injuries. Teo Hernandez getting tired. Why? Because they have to run him into the ground. What don't you guys understand about how any of this stuff works? I think if you're opening your mouth regarding this stuff, you at least should know the finer details about it. And a lot of people just don't. So that's what I have to say with that. We constantly said prior to the season, the first 10 matches are going to be a great barometer to see where this club is at this point in time. And for me, where Milan stand after 10 matches, if we say everything, including the Champions League, right? And considering the injuries that they have, third place isn't bad. A couple points off first place is not bad. Considering that we're seeing the main competitors that we thought would be there, Napoli, Inter, and Juventus. For Milan, I think this was a very strong start to the season, but this defense is ultimately what cost them the Scudetto, because you cannot win the league like this. You cannot constantly be playing defense like this, making constant errors, putting yourselves into multiple yellow card situations, right? Like Reinders is getting into yellow card trouble. Krunic is having to do so. Adley gets yellow cards. Tomori, we've had multiple red cards this season, whether it's Magnan. we're escaping wins with Genoa where we're down a man, right? Tomori red card against Roma. We see Chow red card. We see Chow also getting dusted in the derby against Inter. Just a lot of defensive issues, partially because of who we put in front of the defense and who's been absent there. This is a problem. It's worrisome for the title. I am not as worried for top four. I think the squad will be fine. They're still hanging on and getting results against top sides despite these injuries. What are your review of the first 10 matches? If you want to give it on a grade scale of 0 to 100, how would you go with Milan's first 10 matches?
Well, given it's 10 matches, we'll use a scale of 1 to 10. And I'm probably going to say, if we're just speaking purely on results and where we stand, not
Yes.
necessarily the type of performance and the style in which it's achieved, I'm probably going to say 6.5%,
Out of
which I think
100?
is fair. The reason I knock it down a couple pegs is beyond injuries. Like at the end of the day, the injuries, they obviously hurt and they've taken their toll on the squad so far. That's obvious. The couple of the glaring things that I've seen is, again, there's still like that dependency on like individualistic performances to carry us to a win. It's not like we're playing this sort of, again, within reason, right? We've had performances that we've played as a collective, we played pretty strong.
Yeah.
But in some of these matches where it's like, you really need something special from like Pulisic to carry you.
Yeah.
Or if it's not Pulisic, it's got to be Leao. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not playing this sort of cohesive collective effort where it's like,
Yeah,
no,
and
we're
it's
going
not the
away
first
to
two
a
matches
team.
against Bologna and Torino. Yeah.
Like it feels like we're kind of limping through results. And even the Genoa game, right? Like, it's a win and everyone's going to say, yeah, Giroud and goalkeeper, it's fun. That's all fine and well. But to your point, you can't sustain this and expect to be legitimate for the title. Like, you can't do this for 38 match days. It's just not feasible. And the teams like Inter, where, even the game against Roma for them, where it's 0-0, and I consider Inter a much better team than Roma, let's be honest, based on the quality, based on the coaching, based on just the collective group that they have. They still felt like they were in control of that game. Like 0-0, you feel like, as if you're an Inter fan, you're confident, like, we're going to get something from this. Versus 0-0, you're like, we could probably lose this game. There's a different type of tone and feeling I have in certain performances. And, I think that comes down to the coach. I think that also comes down to players like Rafael Leao and Teo Hernandez and some of your star players where, let's be honest. Yes, we love them. The performances they put in the Scudetto and, the performances they put in on a regular basis for the most part over the past couple of years, we can give them credit for that. But, man, Teo has been bad. Rafael Leao is, in certain moments when he's not getting the ball and he's not, involved in the game, he almost switches off. Those are things that I can't accept. I can accept the team being better than you on a given day, but I can't accept the performances where it's like, wow, like, these players are not performing at all. The mentality's not there. And then you look to what we have done in some of these bigger games, right? We all talked about our record against top sides, right? Top sides. The Napoli game, we got a draw. That should have been a win. The Juventus game, we lost. The Inter game, we got thrashed. PSG, Dortmund, Newcastle, dating back to last year against Inter. Like, against big teams, we're not getting the same type of results that we did a couple seasons ago. There's a different feeling about it. I know people were saying, we were talking Scudetto like in our text and kind of joking around, but the more I look at it, the more I've come to grips with the fact that, and I tweeted about this and some people agreed, some people thought it was, you're on being unfair. Pioli, like, we're not going to get to another level with Pioli. No disrespect to him, but I think it's pretty obvious where we're kind of capped out with him as coach. Injuries, no injuries, even when we had a pretty healthy team, I felt that we were more so of a top 4 team that, hey, we're just happy to get out of the round of 16. I understand we got to a semifinal last year. I get all that, right? We weren't competitive in that semifinal at all. Like, we weren't. So when I look at everything, I'm thinking to myself, is this going to be another season under Pioli where, we play poorly against good teams, but we pick up enough results here and there. We string together some wins to be top 3, top 4. And now it's like, it doesn't give management and ownership a reason to change coaches because, hey, we're still top 4. We're still making Champions League. We're fine. The books look good. But bigger picture is we've been going at this, Martino, for how many years? Like now it's to the conversation where, okay, just get to the Champions League. We've been doing it for multiple years now. We've
Mm-hmm.
started to get the finances right. We're working on a stadium. We're signing our key players to extensions. Now it's about to what Maldini was saying. And I know that's kind of the phrase that people latch onto, but it sort of resonates with me because it's let's be brave, like let's be ambitious. Like we're on this stage. We have to try to be aggressive and take that next step. For me as a fan, from what I've seen, and you would probably agree too, I want more than just, hey, we're just happy to be top four.
Yep.
We're just happy to maybe get out of the group. I don't know. I know we have a good team. I know we have top players, but something tells me that we do need some sort of shakeup. I don't see the involvement in Pioli's style of football, his adaptation in
And he's
game.
gotten everybody that he's wanted. So
Yeah,
like
so
everything that he wanted over the summer, he got. Where Ricky Masada ended up leaving in loyalty to Paolo Maldini, Pioli stayed behind because he wanted to invest in this project and do what he felt was the proper players for him. Because even if he didn't specifically name people, he was calling out past management for the way they handled things and the way they were recruiting. What's your excuse now? There's no excuse. He keeps running the same striker into the ground. He keeps playing him every single match. And to me, it's so funny how there's so many accounts out there on Twitter specifically, and this is why I don't like Twitter anymore, and why we just really try and stick to this medium and platform. There is no blame for the manager for some of you people. And I just find that fascinating considering he is the only common denominator over the past few seasons. There's only one guy and one core of people that have stuck around besides these younger core players, even though half of them have left. There's constant injury issues. There's constant defensive issues. We see him comment midweek on his press conference after a 3-0 beatdown to PSG. Stefano, things are not going your way. You guys are having poor results. And honestly, it's about the style that you're playing. And he goes out there and says, we are not changing the way we want to play. Then you have the players like Davide Calabria kind of going against the grain and what he's saying and going against that. So the captain of the club is kind of publicly stating that he's frustrated with the manager, right? And then we go into Giroud and then we see Leao this past weekend. I think it's a little different with the way they went about things because they felt like that match was still winnable. I think the substitutes were terrible. If you want to take out Leao, okay, fine, one thing. But why is Luca Romero getting subbed on? Why are we not trying Noah Okafor in a situation where we play him as a wing? In my opinion, and Giroud said this himself, the Scudetto is on the line. Picking up a win like this drastically changes your fortune for the entire season, just like it happened a couple of years ago when they won 1-0 in Napoli for that. You have to go for things. The way that I saw Pioli manage this one is like he was scared. Why aren't we trying something, maybe two strikers up front with one another? Is Okafor playing off of Giroud or something like that? Can we kind of try and get the guy who's incredibly hot and getting so many chances in this match where we still don't have to play into the weekend against Udinese? There's no week match against PSG in the Champions League, right? Where are we going with this? Like, what is the ambition here? Where are we going for these extra points? Like, why is Luca Romero not the right time to put Luca Romero on? And I didn't even think they had to do that. They really didn't, to be honest with you. I think you could easily have tried Okafor on the right side, try to use some of that versatility that he has. Pioli looks scared and kind of out of his element when it comes to this, because now we're just really kind of looking in this chaotic situation where things are not going well. There's a lot of turbulence regarding injuries. We see Rafa even complaining himself as to why he got subbed off. I do understand why he was subbed off within that one. To be honest, the performance was subpar. That's not where I'm upset with. What I'm upset with is having Jovic, Okafor, and a trident of Romero up there, and you're trying to get 3 points when they're down a man. They're down a man. To me, no. You have to, if you have Jovic, Romero, and Okafor, you have to have one of the three. You can't have all three up at one time. You have no chance. And I don't care if Chukwueze is out. I'm not putting on Luca Romero with that. I'm not. Pulisic was injured. I'm putting Okafor on the right. And Giroud is there. You figure it out. You don't go with what you went out with, because that's just screaming defensive issues. Luca's not prepared for this. He's not ready to play on this stage where he has to face Napoli and make a contribution there. Like, I'm sorry, he's not. He's just not there yet. Whether or not he ends up being a good player, I don't know. But it's not in this situation. It's not this role. You can't develop at that age and expect anything to be produced. And again, this falls back on him. What are these training methods? And it's not even specifically with Pioli, okay? What's the training staff doing? We hear complaints about what the training grounds are like. Consistently, no one has more injuries in this league than Milan do. And there's people who try and make excuses all the time and say their team isn't. No one is more injured. It's statistically proven over the past few seasons that no one has more injuries. And it's happening to players. Yeah, some it might be recruitment and they might have injury history in the past. And then again, I hear idiot Inter fans. This is why they're so dumb to me and why I'm so tired of hearing it. You think that it's recruitment, okay? And then you give examples of your players that have had injury history in the past and that you have them now and they're not injured. Thanks for proving my point, geniuses. Thank you for proving my point. Who has two sets of injury-prone players, right? Inter and Milan. Who are the players that consistently get injured? Milan. Who are also players that they have on their squad that don't have injury history that are getting injured? It's Milan. How is Sportiello out for 2 to 3 months? How did this happen? How is it possible? What are we doing in our training methods here that a goalkeeper has to miss multiple months because of an ankle injury? Mind you, also happened to our other starting goalkeeper where he has lower leg injuries. A consistent problem. We have muscle fatigue that constantly pops up for our players. Remember when Alexis Salamakers couldn't play for a while because he had muscle fatigue? How many of these guys have constant muscle fatigue? That's an issue. And the way they rehab this guy should be back next week. Oh, wait, it's a month later. He's still not back. How is this possible? How does this consistently happen?
Also, even on the other end of Benacer, right? We were told 2024, January, February. How is it that he's ahead of schedule in training with the team? Like, is he going to be ready for December now? Or are we still going to have to wait 2 months for him to play?
I don't even know.
Like, I don't know. Like, I truly don't know when guys are coming back, and I don't know what to believe. I saw a couple, sources on Milan put like the list of players and when they're going to come back and the time frames and all that stuff. It feels like Ruben Loftus-Cheek has been out for 2 months. Like, I don't see him playing this weekend.
Say he's doubtful.
I don't think he's going to play. I think they're going to say we don't want to risk him. He ain't going to play
because of the PSG match.
Right?
I think it's going to.
I don't see Pulisic playing. I don't see Pulisic playing. If I'm being honest. I think Pioli's going to probably put Romero in there. We're going to see Romero. We're going to see Leao. We might see Okafor somewhere. I don't know. Like, I just don't know that side of it like well enough to think like, oh, Pioli's going to put this guy out there, that guy out. And I tweeted this out in a kind of like a joking manner yesterday. Yeah. But truly, like, I don't feel confident that we ever have enough depth. Like, the conversation is always, we don't have enough depth on this team. So what do? We go out there, we mortgage one of our top players. We get a bunch of players. Everyone's like, okay, finally, we have midfield depth. Finally, we have attacking depth. And man, they're going down like flies. Like,
nobody wants to point the blame at him. And like, it's how are we not doing it? How is it just always the player's fault? How is it just constantly that? How it's never on the strength and training staff. It's never on the recovery side of things. It's not on the manager who chooses who plays what minutes and how often. It's never that. It's never that. Nope, not Pioli. It's the guys in the management that recruit him. Even though Pioli was on board with every single decision that Pioli wanted these players. Forget about that. Rafael Leao, not good at anything but dribbling, right? According to these people. Same idiots, same morons that keep on spewing the same old thing. When people do well, they keep their mouths shut. But when things finally fit their narrative after months on end, then they decide to open their mouths. This is who we deal with in this family. It's ridiculous. The preview versus Udinese. We don't know who's going to be healthy enough for that. It's going to be Chow and Tomori. It's going to be Calabria and Teo at the back. Mañana is going to be starting. Midfield trident once again. You're going to see Tijani Reinders in there. You don't think Loftus-Cheek is probably going to start? I highly doubt he starts, and if he plays, he'll get a small cameo in there. Musa is going to likely start again. Centrally, Krunic or Adli, obviously, but it feels like Krunic at this point, or unless he feels like he could trust Adli in a match like this, or they really feel like they need the 3 points. Udinese has not won a match yet this season, especially in Serie A. They play in Coppa Italia.
Coming into this game with our injuries frightens me.
Okay, yeah. So expand on that. So so Romero right wing, Okafor does not start. Maybe like what do you think?
I don't know. Would it surprise you if he plays Giroud again? No.
I don't understand. And also, yeah. So Giroud, why,
Like
why
I'm just
is he
confused. Like
starting against Udinese and then
I'm just
playing a quick
confused.
turnaround to PSG? Why are
I'm
we
just
doing that?
confused at like the management of Giroud because there's a lot of instances in like a block of games where you're like, this is the time to give Giroud a rest. Run Okafor out there, play Okafor, play Leao, play Pulisic before he got injured, right? And then
Yeah,
you're like, Giroud is playing 75 to 80 minutes. And then you put Jovic or Okafor in for 15 or 10 minutes. And they're
Jovic
like,
is awful.
okay, now surely he has to rotate and surely he has to play Okafor. He doesn't play Okafor. And then there's going to come a point in time where the 37-year-old striker picks
Yep.
up a big injury and he's out for months. That's going to happen.
And it's not even
Inevitable.
you're right on that, but like also physically, you see him drained on the pitch. Like even if he's not hurt, he's
Right.
still significantly worse and has a lot
Yeah.
less energy than he would have if he's refreshed.
Right.
So at a certain point, the manager has to trust the guys that he wanted over the summer. When's that trust going to happen? Because it's stupid at this point when there technically are three options to put. And Giroud himself, of course, Giroud, as a hungry athlete that's been at the top level for so long, of course he doesn't want to back up. He doesn't want to vice Giroud, right? He thinks he could do it all on his own. That's the type of mentality that these players have. And I totally get it. But my God, dude, you can't be playing every single week. I'm tired of it. I like him a lot, and I've said this constantly. We're fine, and you and I agree with this, and I know many others do. Giroud, if he's not starting every week, it's fantastic to have. There's not much you can really complain about, right? The guy is eventually going to make an impact. He's had a really good start to the year, numbers wise. I know you take out some of the penalties, whatever, but you see what sort of impact he can make if he gets proper rest. I am personally worried that yes, that blows up in their face. And then you see the reports. We're not going to really get into January too much, but you already see reports about prioritizing center back come January. Guys, if I'm honest with you, what I'm prioritizing is a goal scorer. I need goals. We need to finish chances. They're not doing that right now. It's really rough. Udinese, this one's at home. They play today, actually, against Cagliari at 4 p.m. for Coppa Italia. So there's going to be some sort of rotation, bit tiredness from them. This is a match that Milan absolutely have to win. Does Tommaso Pobega feature heavy minutes in this? In your opinion?
It seems like it. Would it surprise you if it's
Does
Tijani?
he? This is this is my idea. There's no
Yeah,
rumors about this. Musa goes right wing and Pobega slots into that box-to-box spot. Reinders is out left, and you have Adley or Krunic centrally.
maybe.
I don't think he would do it, but that's like an option. That's it, because if you don't have Pulisic, you don't have Chukwueze. So like I can't get this translation properly from Antonio Vitiello with this. I'm gonna have to pull it up right now. But what would you prefer to have seen? Say there's no Pulisic, there's no Chukwueze. What do you want the lineup to look like?
Pulisic, no Chukwueze. I'd like to see Okafor centrally, supported by Leao. And is this the game you give Romero? Like, do you give Romero an opportunity? Like, if like,
Is it a quick hook?
is it? Well,
Ultimately the question.
it's like at this point, it wouldn't surprise me if somehow we find a Krunic as a right winger. Like we've seen that before. I think we've seen him play number 10. We've seen Pioli use him in a way where it's like, all right, you're versatile, I guess. Like, let's throw you in at right wing. Let's throw you. Like, I don't know. I don't know how that attack is going to look. I think Okafor and Leao have to be there. Now, if he's not going to do that, is it Jovic starting? Like, I really just don't know how this attack is going to look here. In the midfield, I'd like to see Adley. I'd like to see Tijani. And I think you can potentially give Musa a break in this one and maybe put Pobega in there. I think you have enough creates because you can have a box-to-box type player in Pobega. If Tijani and Adley are creative enough and efficient enough passing-wise to carry the heavy lifting in the midfield, so maybe that midfield three. And then I think the standard back four you would expect with Calabria, Teo, Tomori, and Chow. Like I think that's probably what it's going to be with Manuel and obviously in goal. So I don't know. The attack is the question mark, obviously. I want to see Okafor more. Like he scores 2 goals in relatively thin minutes. like let's see what this guy's got. Like let's play him as a number 10, like I mean as a number 9, false 9, and let him stretch the field. Like have him play 1-1-2s with Leao, have him support in that way. I think you have to start giving Giroud some breathers in certain matches. Now, if the game is in the balance and Milan are chasing and it's 0-0 and they need a goal, I don't have an issue with bringing on Giroud for 20 minutes. But I think you have to try to go at the games early and put Okafor in, put Leao in, and press the issue. Like, we're going to win this game 2-3-0. Like, we're going to put this game to bed soon, so we don't have to lean on Giroud and bring him off the bench. We don't have to lean on certain guys that have been overworked to come on.
And even if Loftus-Cheek and Pulisic are there, that we don't have to go to those guys.
Right.
That we don't have
like we have to be aggressive in that sense. Like, we haven't had that bite in certain games where it's like, we don't need to put on Pulisic. Like, Pulisic, you got the day off. Just chill. Just vibe out. We're going to smoke this team. Like, that's what was my impression of what we were going to play.
Hope that, but that's where the Chukwueze stuff comes in, where he's not healthy and these guys aren't healthy, that they're backups at crucial times at this point in the season.
Like, this would be perfect. Chukwueze gets the start. You have Okafor, you have Leao. Like, that's a great attack.
You were hoping for that. And in the fun, sadly enough, when Chukwueze went away for the national team break, like, this was his time re-entering here, because we already kind of saw that a little bit, where he's starting against Newcastle. They're switching it up. He's getting starts here against was it Cagliari, I believe?
I think so. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Right. It was Tomori and Okafor. So, like, with that, he, like, getting minutes there, it's huge. And even again with that, even if we want to rotate Christian off to the left, give Leao a breather too. Yeah. We're running these players into the ground. Bartezaghi, a kid getting injured, picked up. We have no backup left back. Our backup left back is an injury-prone Florenzi. Look at this. It's frustrating. Ultimately, it's too premature for me to say anything. I will say this with the update with Vitiello before we head on out here. Resumption of training today, Loftus-Cheek and Pulisic aside. Kieran Chukwueze had customized training on the pitch, which means they trained individually. So they're slowly getting back to that. Chukwueze actually ahead of the timeline where we thought he would be back in late November. I do see him coming back with the next Serie A fixture. I'm going to have to look at, what was it? Our fixture list here. But what do you think? We can't even go off of anything with schedule-wise. So say we go with basically Romero is starting. We have Krunic, Musa, Reinders there. It's Leao, Giroud, and Romero there. What do you think happens with Milan and Udinese?
Prediction?
Give me a prediction. And then Lecce is the game on November 11th at 9 a.m.
I think it's, it is. Strangely enough, I think we've had so much boiling over, emotions running with certain quotes and players at Calabria, and obviously Leao and Giroud in the game against Napoli. Despite all the injuries, despite all this sort of tension boiling over, I think we come out and we get a 2-1 win.
Okay. Ugh.
It wouldn't surprise me, though, in a weird way, that Milan concede first. And now they're really behind the 8 ball. You mentioned it, Udinese hasn't won a game this year. I think one of the only teams that is as worse as they are. I think it's Empoli. Empoli, I was doing an article.
Empoli is horrible.
They're horrible. I think they scored 1 or 2 goals. They're terrible.
They got cleaned over the weekend.
But Udinese is always a bogey team for us. We always struggle to it's either going to be a scoreless draw and Udinese plays tight. They defend their asses off, and we have a 0-0 game here, or Milan take the game by the scruff.
Yep.
Maybe against the conventional norm of the performance that you'd expect against, a team that hasn't won a game, where you think you'd thrash them and you're competing for a Scudetto. I think Milan can still get a 2-1 win out of this. It won't be convincing. I will say that. It won't be in a way where we're going to thrash them and it's man, Milan they needed that. I think we'll still have questions to ask of Pioli, of certain players in this team, but I do think we'll get a 2-1 win. And at this point, with all the injuries, that's the result is what we need until we get guys back. So 2-1, I'll go.
2-1. Yeah. So say we field that lineup. It's frustrating because the performance was actually very strong in terms of offense against Napoli. Obviously, we're not going to have Pulisic there. I think things changed up a lot more when we had to put in the defensive players we had. I think that was the entire difference. I think with Chao and Tomori in this, I feel more confident. Udinese, I think Lorenzo Luca finally scored for them. But he is a different type of player. He's like 6'6", I believe. So we'll see how they handle that. I think Chow really needs a bounce back performance. Tomori's been fantastic. Teo needs to step up. Teo and Liao, I think you have to win us this game. Strictly, yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
Like to be clear with you, if we have players here that we value 90 and over million wise, to step up. You have to beat
Some of these
Udinese.
guys, yeah, I think that's a great point. I think, Magnon hasn't been his greatest.
I think this is the worst stretch I've ever seen him have. It's
Yeah.
been really
Teo
poor.
hasn't been,
Really
we know that's been documented and highlighted.
Yeah.
And Rafael Leao, like I love the players. I love what they've brought here. I value them. I think they're great players in their own way. You got to deliver, man. Like, you want the contracts,
I think
you want
Teo's
the
been.
money, you
I
want
think
the
Teo's been
glory.
very underwhelming.
Like,
this
you
year.
want the label as being a top player.
Yeah,
Like, you have to show me something this weekend. You have to.
Yep.
You have to.
Hopefully with that.
you have to.
So we'll try and see if we can go live on Saturday, guys, after the match. Again, that Milan podcast. Follow, subscribe, give us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple. Again, follow us here on my channel, Martino Puccio. You can go follow me on Instagram, all social media accounts at Martino Puccio. Obviously, Sant'Angelo here as well at AC Milan Bros. Check out the stuff on Sempre Milan. Some of our clips that we record on here do also go on there as well from time to time, depending on the situation. Again, we appreciate all the support. We're sorry we're a little bit behind this past week, but there's going to be more and more consistency with this podcast. Again, there's just been so much support in general. I know sometimes we don't get as many views because people are fed up and don't want to hear Milan content. You get it, but we've been here since the terrible times, as terrible as it can get for Milan. So we're going to be here, rain or shine. Anything else before we head on out that you want to talk about? You mentioned an article coming out soon.
Nothing right now that I have currently pending, but
Okay.
yeah, obviously, if we don't get a result against Udinese off the back of some of these poor results we've had, then there's going to be a lot to kind of come out here, and I'll be writing about that for probably Football Italia or Milan Reports.
Well, be on the lookout for that, Matt. Appreciate you always being on here. So again, hopefully we go live after the match against Udinese. I get a chance to talk about that. And again, we face PSG midweek. We're going to probably try and do PSG after the match and just record a podcast at that point. I might go live and then we do a separate recording. Just stay tuned for all that stuff and when that happens. Other than that, we're going to be heading on out. So thank you guys and see you next time.